The Spanish Pavilion is a Spanish restaurant located in Harrison, New Jersey, and the focus of Season 4, Episode 1 of Kitchen Nightmares, a reality show where a celebrity chef tries to save failing restaurants. In the intro segment, we learn that the restaurant was originally opened by the current owner's grandpa in 1964, and they claim that it was the first Spanish restaurant in New Jersey. Eventually, ownership was passed down to the current owners, Jerry, Michael, and their mom, Balbina. Michael is the head chef, but the other employees accuse him of not being in the kitchen very much and not putting much effort into the business. Jerry explains that he's a councilman in his town in addition to being an owner of the restaurant. In a cutaway, Michael says that people might complain about him not working hard, but Jerry doesn't do anything. And Jerry admits that he's not there that much, but he says that's because he doesn't want to be there because of Michael. It's also revealed that shortly after they took over running the business, profits took a nosedive and they are now $500,000 to $600,000 in debt, which is a really deep hole to get out of. I'm casting my prediction right now before doing any research that they're not going to be able to make it. But let's find out if I'm right. Gordon shows up to the restaurant and right away he makes fun of the servers' tuxedos and says, "Did somebody die?" He then meets Jerry, the politician, and gets seated at a table. When Gordon asks if Michael is the head chef, Jerry says, well, I don't know if he's the head chef, but he's back there quite a bit. And we see a shot of Michael standing in the kitchen playing on his phone instead of working. Gordon orders several different dishes, and it cuts back to the kitchen where we see Michael saying, "I'm gonna make sure I got nothing to do with this order. I ain't hanging my boys out to dry, but..." And then he sits on a counter and starts playing on his phone again. He says in a cutaway, "I'm so confident overseeing my guys that I got nothing to worry about. These guys been by my side 15 years. Truly a model of good work ethic." Gordon gets his first dish, which is a lobster, and the first thing he says is, "It just looks like the lobster was dead before they cooked it." Jerry then offers to let Gordon go take a look at the tank where they keep the lobsters, and he points at one and says, "Is he dead?" And Jerry says, "No, I think they're just sleeping, just like my pet goldfish when I was 5. He pulls out said lobster and says, "He's fucked, dead. Rip in peace, little buddy." The dead lobster is then taken into the kitchen and given to Michael, who's talking on his phone. He smells the dead lobster and says, "It don't smell." In a cutaway, he says, "That lobster's fresh. Even though it died, it's good." Michael then comes out to Gordon's table to try and convince him that the fresh lobster wasn't that bad, but after a brief interaction, Gordon says, "You must be busy," which is a thinly veiled way of saying fuck off. After Gordon tries the next dish and says it's also terrible, Michael tries it and says that it's fucking good, and then adds, "Have faith on me, baby. This ain't a normal guy. It's a Brit, huh? They're pain in the neck." Overall, Jerry seems to be very ashamed of the food, and Michael's attitude is more like, what are you gonna do? After trying 3 bad dishes, Gordon meets with the 2 brothers and their mom in the kitchen to give his criticisms directly. When he complains about the dish Michael said was good, Michael pushes back and says that he ate the whole thing. Gordon then asks Michael if he cooked it, and after a moment of silence, he says that he didn't cook anything, which prompts Gordon to ask, "What do you actually do, Michael? What would you say you do here?" Michael says, "I don't taste everything, but I try to taste as much as I can." Gordon then asks him which of his dish he tasted, and he says, "Every single one, at least when it came back." And he adds, "I'm proud of what went out today." Gordon is completely unimpressed with Michael and his work ethic, but next he decides to watch a typical dinner service. For the dinner service, Michael is behind the bar for some reason, and the food coming out of the kitchen doesn't look too good. Several customers complain that their food is still raw. In response to the terrible job the kitchen is doing, Jerry and Michael both go back there to try and get things under control. But instead of helping things, they just end up arguing with each other. Then Michael starts arguing with the, sous chef named Al. Then Al starts yelling and getting frustrated, and Michael says, "Stop yelling. I'll knock you out right here. You hear me?" Gordon then tells Michael to keep it together, and he seems to calm down briefly and tries to calm down Al, who is now throwing a tantrum of his own. But after trying to talk with him calmly for a few seconds doesn't work, Michael flips his shit and aggressively shoves Al toward the door while yelling, "Get out!" For a brief second, it looks like the two might come to blows, but Gordon tells everyone to calm down and the two get separated. Michael gets chastised by his brother and his mom and is told to go outside and take a breather. Physically throwing him out probably wasn't the best solution, but the sous chef was acting like a total dickhead and flipping out for no reason. After the abysmal service, Gordon gives them a short and sweet review. He says it was terrible, and then fucks off. The next day he shows up to the restaurant to go through their refrigerators, and what he finds is astounding. They have so much food in inventory. They've got chicken, crab legs, lobsters, some of them dead, eggs, beef, vegetables, all in staggering numbers. Even if they were full every single night, it doesn't seem like they would need that much food. Then when Gordon goes back upstairs to see the other fridges, a fucking pigeon is flying around in the kitchen for some reason. As Gordon is going through the food and saying, "What the fuck is this?" the pigeon is just flying all over the place and knocking shit over. It's absolutely hilarious. Then when the owners show up, Gordon brings them back and shows them everything he found. I have to mention that when Gordon picks up one of the dead lobsters and wiggles it around for Michael to see, they added in a sound effect, and I don't know why, but that really cracked me up. Gordon shows Michael a dead half of a lobster that was floating in the sauce that Gordon had previously tried and says, "And the freshest thing in this kitchen is that pigeon flying around, and he's lucky he's still alive." Gordon shows them the insane amounts of food in the basement, and Michael responds sheepishly, "I wanted to make sure I was ready." And Gordon says, "Ready for what?" This revelation leads Michael's mom to completely shit on him, even though she's also an owner and she could have easily gone down there to see what was going on. At one point, Michael looks like he's on the verge of tears. Next, Gordon decides to ask Michael to come up with a dish to put on as a special in order to help him boost his confidence. After cooking together for a bit, Michael comes up with an octopus dish and Gordon says that it's nice, which seems to help Michael get some of his confidence back. For the next dinner service, the two specials go on the menu and Jerry and Michael both seem to be way more motivated and willing to work together. Michael is helping cook the food and Jerry is expediting. But as the orders start coming in, the pressure starts to get to Michael and food is leaving the kitchen very slowly. This causes Jerry and Michael to both get frustrated and start yelling at each other. Then when a chicken dish goes out, the customer says that it's dry and mushy. But when it gets back to the kitchen and Gordon starts dissecting it, he says it's not normal. He then goes over to the raw chicken that they're using to make it, smells it, and says that it's gone bad, which is pretty horrifying because you could make someone really sick like that. They throw out the bad chicken, grab a fresh one from their enormous stockpile, and they manage to get through the dinner service okay. After the service, Gordon gives everyone a critique, and he says that while it was better, they still made some big mistakes. Mainly, he criticizes Michael for not spotting the bad chicken. But next is the restaurant redesign part of the episode. For some reason, they closed off the dining room with a big piece of paper, and they made Michael bust through it like the fucking Kool-Aid man. But everyone seems to really like the changes that have been made to the dining room. The new menu is also revealed, and likewise, they all seem to love it. So with the new changes in place, it's time for the relaunch service to start. As the service starts, things seem to be going well, but then things start getting hectic. It seems like Michael's confused about the tickets, and he starts listening to Jerry, who is expediting. Michael starts losing his temper, and eventually Gordon pulls him aside and tells him that he needs to stop yelling at his brother and listen to what he says. Michael then apologizes to Jerry, and the two manage to complete the service without further incident. After the service, Gordon gives them the usual end of episode pep talk, and he says that they did a good job, but that they need to keep it up. At the very end of the episode, the narrator says that Jerry and Michael have continued to work together in the kitchen, and we see clips of Michael working hard behind the line instead of fucking around on his phone. So, how did things go after the episode of Kitchen Nightmares? Well, Gordon actually returned to do a revisited episode, and before he met with anybody, he decided to sneak into their freezer to see if they still had massive amounts of food sitting around. He finds that their fridge is well organized and not full of excess food. He then meets with Jerry, who tells him that the business is doing really well. But there is one notable change. Michael is missing. Jerry tells Gordon that Michael no longer works there and that he decided to try something new. When asked to elaborate, he says that Michael is working for a chain restaurant in a managerial training program. Based on comments he makes throughout the segment, I get the impression that Michael's temper may have also played a role in him leaving the restaurant. But he says that the two of them are still on good terms and the door is always open for him if he ever wants to come back. Next, Gordon goes to the dining room, and after confirming that there are no dead lobsters in the tank, he tries the food. He says that it's really good, and we also get the unfortunate news that Jerry's grandfather, the original founder of the restaurant, has passed away. So, did they manage to survive up until the present day? Did Michael ever return to the business? And what happened to that pigeon? At the beginning of the episode, they were in a massive amount of debt, and I didn't see any way that they could get out of it. Well, after doing the research, I can say that the Spanish Pavilion is open as of 2025. I guess I was wrong. Don't I look stupid? But what about Michael? Did he ever return to the restaurant? I managed to find the restaurant's Instagram page, and if you scroll back through their pictures, you can see this video of Michael's 50th birthday celebration at the restaurant from June of 2024, along with a bunch of other pictures of him at the restaurant from the same year. This picture is from April of this year, and I think that's him, but I'm not entirely sure. But either way, he did return to the restaurant, and it looks like things are going pretty well for him. There's also this post of a 40-year celebration for Jose, who was one of the servers that was prominently featured in the episode. Hell, there's even a recent picture of Al, who was the sous chef that Michael tried to shove out the door. Looks like most of the memorable staff from the show are all still there all these years later. But there is one person who seems to be absent from all the pictures that I found, and that is Jerry. Which is unusual because in the revisited episode, Jerry was the one who was running the restaurant and Michael was nowhere to be seen. I managed to track down Jerry's LinkedIn page, and it looks like he's no longer involved with the restaurant anymore, at least as an owner. Here we can see that it says he was a co-owner of the Spanish Pavilion from 1994 to October of 2019. You can also see that he was the mayor of Springfield for about a year. But it looks like he's found a new career path because now he's listed as being a checker with APM Terminals. I had no idea what the hell that meant, but underneath that it says, checkers are responsible for supervising activities that deal with cargo and the docks, slips, berths, and terminal areas involved in transporting it. So I'm assuming that he deals with cargo that comes in from overseas in some capacity. I also found a video that a YouTuber called Brennan Taylor did a while ago where he visited the Spanish Pavilion in 2022 to see if the food was any good. I'll put a link to his video down in the description if you want to watch the whole thing. Surprisingly, when he and his friend walked in the door, they were waited on by none other than Jose himself, and they got to ask him a lot of questions about going on the show. Jose made some really interesting claims about the Kitchen Nightmares episode. The question of whether Kitchen Nightmares is real or not, or how real it is one that's come up many times in the comment sections of my videos, and it's something that I may do a video on in the future. But basically, Jose says that the dead lobster in the lobster tank was planted. The complaining customers from the Kitchen Nightmares episode were brought in by the show and were not locals. And he also says that the restaurant's food wasn't really that bad before going on the show. He says that they only went on the show because they had an aging customer base and they wanted to attract some new ones. He also implies that the fighting between Jerry and Michael was exaggerated just for TV. I should also mention that Jose himself made claims in the episode about some of the things that he says weren't true in Brennan's video. He claimed at the beginning of the episode that the restaurant had declined after the new owners took over. He claimed that Jerry and Michael didn't care about the business anymore, and when raw chicken was sent back to the kitchen and Gordon asked him if that was normal, he said yes, and that it happens a lot of times. Now, it is entirely possible that he was just going along with the show and maybe he felt some pressure to agree with Gordon, but I just wanted to mention that. By the way, side note, in Brennan's video, they show that the lobster tank is now empty and it's no longer in use. I guess nobody trusted it after seeing in the Kitchen Nightmares episode. Obviously, I can't really confirm or deny if any of Jose's claims are true, but like I said, maybe in the future I'll do a deep dive into the topic of whether or not Kitchen Nightmares is staged. Let me know in the comments if that's something that you want to see. Brennan and his friend then tried two of the dishes that were featured in the episode, the garlic chicken and the paella. They say that both are good, but the chicken is swimming in oil, which Gordon complained about when he ate there for the first time. The last thing that I'd like to briefly look at is their Yelp reviews so we can get a better idea of how the general public feels about their food. We can see that they have 3.7 out of 5 stars, which isn't too bad depending on how you look at it. It's about a 75 out of 100. And if we look at the graph of their reviews, this seems like a pretty good sign. I would guess based on this that their food is at least decent, but maybe not the best food on earth. But that is the story of the Spanish Pavilion. They stayed open for 14 years until the present day and have pretty decent reviews. Michael returned to the restaurant and seems to be running it, while Jerry left the restaurant and started a career working at the dock. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you like this video, please consider liking and subscribing, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.